Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is still morning, isn't it? So,
Yes, it is.
yeah, just about good. Guess I better start with one or two health warnings, because I never really know what I'm going to say until I say it. So I have a handout, which I don't allow you to have before the event, but it's available for afterwards, which sort of says what I meant to say. As opposed to what I actually say, that may be somewhat at variance, because I'll wander down rabbit holes, I'll do all sorts of things as I go along. I thought when Colin asked me to do this, well, you have seen my, or many of you will have either been at my normal lecture on the management module, or will have seen or heard a recording of it for the distance learning purposes. So you don't really want a repetition of all that. So, but what I thought was worth doing was talking a little bit about trust. My motivation for choosing this topic was an examination question which I set on the last MSc exam for the module. I stepped in for Peter Wilde sort of in the interim before Lizzie Coles-Kemp was free to do it, as she'll be doing this year. So last year I led the management module on the MSc, and so I got to set the exam and got to mark it. And I set one question on trust, which I felt was answered rather badly. It's a question which I thought gave the opportunity for a bit of out-of-the-box thinking by students, which clearly students don't like, but that is what the nature of the subject of information security really is about. Well, I'll be honest, there was a mistake made between the exam question getting to leaving me and arriving on the paper, which it was somewhat shortened, and I think I had a slightly longer headline, but the basics was there, the importance of trust in data protection, and the blurb underneath, which was essentially giving you all an essay plan. So it's always worth reading the blurb underneath these if you're doing the exam. That wasn't changed, and that was what I was really looking for. I was looking for some sort of feeling for what trust was about and how it related to assurance, and then going on to data protection, how it would fit in there. And I wanted to be able to bring out the difference between confidentiality and privacy. That was one thing that practically nobody who answered the question did. And showing how various things were addressed through information security management processes. So that is the sort of subtext behind what I'm talking about today. I'm not giving a model answer to a former exam question, although everything that might have gone into an answer is certainly in the handout that I have. The handout is at least twice as long as an essay answer in an exam should be, so that it contains things that would not be expected or would be only expected to be mentioned very briefly in an actual exam answer that got 100%. But that basically it shows the nature of the material that I was looking for here, and I hope shows you how to think about this trust issue. Well, the first thing about trust is that it's difficult to define. We sort of think we know what we mean, but nobody ever really has got round to understand what it's about. Now, historically, trust has grown up from interaction between two human beings, face-to-face stuff. People you see, so you've got all sorts of clues, you know, a big grin on their face that means, come on, I'm lying, or whatever, but your body language, past experience, things other people have told you, I wouldn't trust him, or she's great, you know, you can take as gospel whatever she says. All that sort of thing that goes in towards building trust. And the clear nature about it is none of it, or almost none of it, subjective. This is a subjective thing, very awkward. But it's everywhere. Actually, without trust, you can't really get anything done. You can't live your life in the same company as other human beings if you can't do trust in some way. And basically, we've got two concerns. The first is the bona fides. Is at least the person that we're dealing with trying to do the right thing? Are they acting in good faith? That's what it means, bit of Latin. Right? So that's the first question. Or is this a criminal who's trying to do me? Is this a phishing? Or at face value, can I at least accept that this guy is not trying to do me? Then the next thing is competence. When the plumber says they can fix my leak, can they actually do it? Or are they one of these cowboy builders that we see on television that is going to charge me, the bona fides is charging me a fortune, but is actually going to bodge the job? The second of these, competence, is at least something that we can have a few more objective things into. You know, we can ask you, well, show me your MSc certificate from Royal Holloway, and then maybe I believe you know something about information security. A little bit of something that's at least objective in a sense. You've got this certificate, or you haven't. But good faith, well, you have to rely on all sorts of other things to build the trust. So that's what trust between people is about. It builds into the basic integrity of everything. Another difficult subject, and relate. Again, very subjective. You don't really know what's going on. So, but we're now moving away from interpersonal dealings. Right? So the background, the history is all about how people interact. We now are looking at trust in different circumstances. What happens when you're no longer dealing with individuals that you can get your hands around their throat or whatever, but with big impersonal companies, or with that dratted machine, you know, the thing you thump the keyboards on and say, why aren't you doing what I tell you to do? I don't know. I get in a lot of trouble at home for swearing at my computer. Some of you may have a lot more forbearance, but I'm sure many of you will agree that computers deserve to be sworn at. So, there you are. Trust. I think that sort of sums it up. How do you go about getting trust? Experience? Have I had a bad experience when I've done that, when I've shown my bottom to a girl? Or a good one? I don't know. And taking your trust in little leaps, not great big ones, not opening up entirely, but just taking a little risk, and hoping the other side will also then take a little risk. You build up to eventually having a mature, trusting relationship. And a lot of that is about mutual exposure. I don't know. Do 4-year-olds still play, well, you show me yours? A lot of what you do in real life with human beings, and have done for centuries, about trust, is now something that we need to capture and apply in the more difficult circumstances of impersonal organizations and of machines. So, let me look at trust. The other thing we do, in fact, basically all we can do with trust, is we seek assurance. Assurance is sort of stands as a proxy for trustworthiness. Look at the certificate. that's some assurance that I know what I'm talking about. Maybe, you know, I can give assurance by signing a piece of paper that says, if you lose money, I'll give it back to you. All sorts of little things that build up the evidence on which you say, well, okay, I'll trust them. I'll take the risk. So assurance is not trust in itself, but it's all we've actually got to go for. We seek assurance. We look at the processes that are doing the right thing or doing the thing right. In fact, that's the two sides, if you like. The bona fides is doing the right thing, and the competence is doing the thing right. You know, I might be perfectly willing to help you out when your plumbing goes wrong, but I'm totally incompetent, so the last thing you would do is want me to actually do it. But my bona fides would be fine, just say that I would want to do the right thing, I just couldn't do it right. And of course you need both. Now when it comes to organisations, well, this is about an organisation trusting you. They need to do that. All the big companies with whom you deal, they want to trust you. You are going to deal with them, they want to make sure you do pay your bill, if it's that. Or that you won't damage their computer if you're connecting to them. Or basically that in their dealings with private individuals, they don't get a bad one. That's what organisations want. And that's really what classic information security is about within the context of our subject. It's where all the research has been done, it's where all the money goes. It's what you, in fact, are doing mostly. You're looking from the point of view of the organisation that may employ you to keep its systems secure. That is, in the trust sense, looking at how the organisation can trust those out there with whom they're going to have to deal. And how do you do it? You do it by having security policies, regulations, things that you say to your employees, you must do this, you mustn't do that. Personnel vetting, you know, I only want employees that are people I can trust, so I go and see, are they criminal? Are they, do they have a record of screwing their employer? Have they got good references? Are other people prepared to vouch for them? So that's the sort of thing you do. And then, even so, you build in some safeguards, access control things, give people the tools they need to do the job they need, but not to abuse it. You don't let everybody have the ability to manipulate the company's critical financial data, because almost everybody doesn't need that. But I'm afraid that you have some employees who do need that, and those are the ones you give that privilege to. It's not about the one lot being better than the other, but about making sure that the damage that you could incur is limited. And you do audit and you do monitoring and all those sorts of things. And that's how an organisation looks at trusting the individuals with whom it deals. Because, of course, just going back a little, what is an organisation? Of course, organisations are based, they're about people. They don't really exist in isolation. I mean, even the government is peopled by human beings. Organisations are about people, but they have also have a life of their own. The sum is greater, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And people collectively don't always behave the same way as people individually. And an organisation is more about collective behaviour and not always following the same morality that an individual might. And in both ways. But back because that's really looking ahead a bit, we go back to the trust in organisations. Basically, I think in order for your organisation to function sensibly in a security world, that's actually what you need. It's not what you've always got. If you look at traditional Bell LaPadula type information security policy, that actually is based on you can't trust anyone. It says, I've got somebody to whom I am going to, who I trust to have piece of secret information, but I've not cleared for top secret. So if they get a top secret document, they're going to go straight around to the Russian embassy with it. Actually, that's not true. That model doesn't actually model trust very well. That is actually much more true. Most of your people can be trusted, in fact, most of the time. Just occasionally, though, you've got somebody who can't, and just occasionally, somebody who's normally trustworthy will succumb to some temptation. This is why you don't allow people completely free-for-all access to claiming expenses. This was the mistake that our members of parliament made, or rather our parliamentary authorities made. They thought members of parliament could be trusted over expenses. And one would have liked to think that that was not misplaced. But in practice, we discovered that it was indeed misplaced. Some members of parliament, some of the time, couldn't quite be trusted. So, but nevertheless, building your defences on this sort of model is, I think, the way that you end up with a robust system. You can't do it all in a mechanical way. You have to investigate the trust aspects and see where that leads you. This does, of course, enable you to use as part of your defence mechanism that if somebody gets access to something they shouldn't inadvertently, there's a very good chance that they'll tell you. That's certainly what happens when you get to a more senior position and you are overworked and a document reaches your desk that you shouldn't have. You don't read it. You actually say, oh, good, that's a document I'm not even allowed to read. And you phone somebody up and you tell them off for getting it to you. You make sure that it's known. Of course, if you aren't overworked, you do read it because either you're a spy or you're not a spy. And you know. Well, if you're a spy, of course you read these anything you're not entitled to. Could be useful. And if you're not a spy, you know there's no damage done, so you still can read it. But I now want to look at the part of it that isn't actually anything like so well researched. And the reason is, of course, research costs money. And who pays the money to do the work? It's probably the organisations. So they do pay to see what you can do to secure themselves. They're much less bothered with the other people's problem of trusting them. Say, the organisation is greater than the sum of its parts. It doesn't necessarily behave well just because the individuals there would always behave well. And the main characteristic, then, you're dealing with a big organisation is an imbalance of power. They've got the power. You want something, they can give it you on their terms, not on your terms. If they want your name and address to be released before they will sell you anything, and you want to buy, you release your name and address. They may not need it. They may do. You may be ordering remotely and it's got to be delivered. But if you walk into shops and buy things, they ask you for details that they don't need. It's not in anyone's requirement why they should know who you are and what you're doing when you're handing over honest money, you know, the pictures of the Queen, in return for a bag of goodies. It shouldn't matter, but still. But when you buy tyres for your car, things like that, all sorts of stuff where they want to put you on their database. Not necessary. But they've got the power, you haven't. There can be a conflict of interest. What you're trying to get out of a transaction and what the organisation is trying to get out of it may not be the same thing. Now, a lot of trust is built on you having essentially a shared interest. I can trust you because we both want this to go right. Because if we both goes right, we both win. That's what but if you've got a position where the win-lose equations are different, you may be in a position where the trust relationship doesn't work. What you have got to go on your side is basically organisations care about their reputation. I know a private individual cares about their reputation too, but organisations, it really can be even more important. And indeed, this is why things work when something goes wrong with your bank or whoever, and you threaten to get a newspaper involved, and they suddenly discover, oh, that they could pay you a compensation after all, or something of that sort. They worry about the reputation. They don't have any morality about it. And then there's a legal framework. Because organisations are not always going to do the right thing by individuals, we do have some legal framework to try and protect us. And sometimes we have financial guarantees, or a third party. All these are things which you can do, I don't want to read them out, that help gain the trust in the organisation that you are dealing with. The trust that you can undertake your transaction, whatever that may be, without undue risk. So that's trusting the organisations. And what about a machine? Well, basically, I think that's true. You can trust the machine to do what it's told. That's what machines do. You give it a set of instructions, and it does that. You say to the bank machine, give me £100, and it gives you £100, basically, assuming that you've put in the right card and you've got money in the bank and things like that. But what you don't know is what the machine has been told to do. You may know what you think you've told it. You don't know what others have told it to do. You don't know what else is going on. You are presented in your garage with this little machine that says, and they say, put your credit card in there and type in your PIN. Right? And you believe, without any real evidence, apart from the fact that your bank sort of said it was more secure when they gave you the PIN in the first place, that this machine will somehow use your PIN to authenticate you and to approve the transaction, and that it won't store it, and it won't tell it to anyone else, it won't give it to anybody else. Well, I don't know that it takes that much work to modify the workings of a handheld machine to make it store the PIN and then later enable you to print it out. And I'm sure that that's essentially what one or two criminals do. I mean, I know there's shoulder surfing and all these other things that can go on, but actually, do you really think that you can absolutely trust those machines? Very difficult. And that same goes not just for something simple like a bank credit card PIN machine, but for any dealings remotely over a computer. You don't know what the program actually is doing. You might, or somebody might, know what it's intended to be doing. We have, of course, absolute knowledge that Microsoft never have bugs in any of their software, and that Bill Gates knows absolutely everything that his machine might do under any circumstances. Or do we? The trust in the machine is actually an extremely difficult question. And a lot of the earliest computer security was about trying to get over that problem. What can we look for to say, okay, I'm going to trust this bit of software or this bit of hardware? Well, there's the reputation of the organizations involved all along the line. Good old Microsoft. Good old Steve Jobs and Apple. These guys wouldn't do us down, would they? So, you know, if something's been done by a major company that sold lots of things that seem to work most of the time, you know, that's a good thing. That's one thing we can go on. If the reputation is a really dodgy one, you know, we know actually this is an offshoot of the Soviet intelligence, well, now Russian intelligence services that have built this specially to hope to catch out the British government, or that the company that wrote the software is actually owned by the mafia, then you worry a bit more. Qualifications of the staff. Who have actually done the work? Do they employ well-qualified engineers? Or do they employ 15-year-olds working in a sweatshop somewhere who, you know, can manage to hack together a bit of game software that may or may not work properly? What's happening? So you've got staff. You've got functional testing. From a security point of view, functional testing has not actually had a good press, largely because it's not enough. So what's happened is that people have sort of said, well, that's no good. Actually, it's still important. You can at least test the machine and see if it seems to work. Doesn't give you everything, not by any means, but it's an important aspect of assurance. I have been to my bank ATM 50 times in the last year. On each occasion, I've asked it to give me £100. On each occasion, it's done so. I've had bank statements that show that it's done so. None of them have taken any more. Nobody else has hacked me off. That sounds... I can trust that machine, sort of. Seems like. Penetration testing. You know, back in the 1980s, I was involved in debates on the subject of how we provide assurance for computers, and penetration testing was something that I felt was extremely important. And the sort of basically engineering side said, oh, no, won't work. Have to do it now, of course, because none of these machines are any good. But yeah, the nirvana ahead is we're going to have everything trusted. We're going to use mathematics that's going to prove everything with formal methods, and then you'll never need to do penetration testing. It's only a stopgap. I found it telling that all the engineers really put their faith in the mathematics, and all the mathematicians put their faith in the engineering. The mathematician said, don't use software. Stick to good old hardware. That works. You know, some good engineer has built those chips and they're going to work. And you know where you are with wires and valves or, well, transistors. They're okay. Do you understand them, oh mathematician? Actually, no. But, yeah, those engineers are pretty good. Go to the engineers. Nah, hardware goes wrong, you know. God, you don't know what goes into some of this silicon stuff. It's magic, but boy, I wouldn't trust it. No, mathematics, that's what you want. Nice formal specifications. That can be proved to work. Well, you can prove it. Oh, the mathematicians can prove it. Yeah, they're good. Yeah, I scraped through my maths at college, but You know, the real mathematician, they can do it for you. It'll be perfect. I found it extremely worrying that those two sides of our expertise were so much at variance. So, anyway, nowadays we know penetration testing is actually pretty important for gaining some kind of assurance. It doesn't do everything. The fact that you've tried to break something and it hasn't broken doesn't mean it's not breakable. But it sure helps. And then we've got evaluation. Here's where we really look at, take something apart and try and work out what it might do under stress. Terribly expensive. You change a system and it no longer really applies. Again, can't be the solution that we really always were looking for. But it's something. When it comes down to it, you can only trust, your basis of trust on machines is a collection of a whole heap of stuff. All those things, but keep on monitoring, keep on checking, pull things out of use occasionally and check they still appear to be working. Your crypto may have sent encrypted messages when you when it left the factory. It may have been fine then. 3 years down the line, and nobody's really done anything. What's happening? Is it perhaps all just forgotten, particularly with a bit of software? I don't know. What's happening? You've got to keep at it, and you've got to look at authentication. Actually, yeah. Is the machine up there that I'm talking to actually the machine I think I'm talking to? Phishing websites is the obvious example. Here I am, think I'm talking to HSBC that's wanting all this stuff from me so that I can manage my bank account. And I'm really talking to hsbc.co.uk/criminal subterfuge or something. So I need some authentication. And you need that, of course, in both directions. So all these things go into trust. Now I'm going to turn to data protection. And one of the reasons is this has become a big motivation for trust. Back when I was working in CESG in the 1970s and even early 80s, it wasn't about trust. I worked for government. Government were my customers. I wasn't working for the general public. I was working for the military, for the diplomatic service, whoever. And I was government, and they had no choice but to trust me. Right? It wasn't about was I trying to do the MOD by giving them a crap crypto. Yeah, that wasn't really the issue. It was about security. It was about, did it work? Was the design right? Yeah. So all the concentration was on actual security. Was the real equipment about that? Not about, did the soldiers trust it? They trusted it because they were told, this is your crypto, you use it. So all the things that I was trained to deal with were about the nuts and bolts of what was a good encryption system, what wasn't, how you implemented it, how good it was. All that has changed. It's changed in government. Well, it took us a little while to notice, because change creeps up on you. But quite clearly, when we deal outside our closed communities, you get this issue of trust. You don't just want something to be secure. You have to trust it's secure. You have to trust that it's doing the right thing. You do start worrying about motivations. So a whole new aspect to security really came about once people were dealing outside a closed community. And nowhere more so than in the subject of data protection. And this is really where I think the trust issues really first came to the fore, because it wasn't just a question of are you competent to keep my data secure? It was are you willing to do it? What is the government doing with all this stuff that it's now got? What do Tesco's want with the information that I'm freely giving them? Another issue, of course, is are they competent? And we know people have fallen down on that. But this was actually the scenario under which these issues of trust really came to the fore. And there are the two aspects. Confidentiality. It's very simple. That's about keeping secret secret. That's what government was good at for itself. Well, most of the time. It was what it tried to do. And it's actually relatively objective. About preventing unauthorized disclosure. And you can do things like cryptography to help you with that. You can do all sorts of other things that might help it. And basically, it works under the supposition that somebody owns the information and gets to control it. Okay? When you tell a secret to someone, it's no longer your secret. But with a little bit of power, like the Official Secrets Act or non-disclosure agreements or whatever, you can do things that handle that. Much more elusive is privacy. Now, privacy is not the same as confidentiality. Some private information is indeed confidential. And solutions to the confidentiality problems can help towards being solutions for those privacy problems. But much more so, privacy is about controlling the usage of your information. For example, one's name and address counts as personal information. When the government holds it in databases, it's meant to look after it. Fails at doing that occasionally, of course, but it's personal. But in no way is it secret information or confidential information. Even your credit card details, they sit there on the outside of your card, which you hand to the lowest paid people you can find. Right? Waiters, perhaps, in restaurants, or shop assistants. The information on that card is not secret. It is not a confidentiality issue. It is a privacy issue. It is about who is using that information and for what purpose. And you're very clear about what that purpose should be. You let somebody have access to the information on your credit card because you want them to take a single transaction through that card, basically. And you expect them to make that transaction and then fundamentally not to store the information. Except online, that's not what they do, is it? Control of usage. Why have I given somebody the information? Why does the government have certain information on me? It needs it. Can it abuse it? Yes, it can. Personally, I am appalled that electoral registers can be sold for marketing purposes. It's necessary that the government collects the information on an electoral register. And they should have that. But then, to enable them to make commercial use of it, often to your annoyance, is disgraceful. Now, of course, there is a get out, and like you can tick a box, which I do tick, that says they don't jolly well let my information out from that way. I get enough obscene phone calls wanting to sell me everything from double glazing to new kitchens and God alone knows what, or tell me that I'm in debt and I can do something about it, or rather not do something about it. So that's really what privacy is, where privacy comes in. It's about people being able, or organizations, abusing the necessary information that they are allowed to hold for specific purposes and abusing it for different purposes, often to the disadvantage of the information subject. Well, of course, we've seen these serious breaches of information, of private information in recent years, and that's caused some major losses of public trust. I mean, real damage. I mean, the government has been seriously damaged from its own idiocies. Other organisations have been seriously damaged, not just because they might get fined by the Data Protection Registrar, or Information Commissioner, sorry, but you know, it can affect everything. And it limits the effectiveness. I mean, it's actually everybody's problem. So the restoration of trust is actually essential. And we need the confidence measures. We need to be able to think as to what it is that can convey trust. And we're not very good at it, mainly because I think not much has been done. One thing has been done, is it's been recognised that there is a part that the law can play. So we have the Data Protection Act. Despite, by the way, a little aside on the essay question, despite a pretty clear hint as to what they wanted, a number of answers didn't even mention the Data Protection Act. It was sort of thought of something that was almost not worth giving a mark to, because surely nobody would forget that. But they did. So we do have the law. Data Protection Act, Official Secrets Act. That is part of the law to help confidentiality as opposed to privacy. Okay, in a specific instance of the government's own information. Copyright and patent laws. Whatever you think of some of the digital rights stuff, and there will be mixed opinions, but that's what they are. They are about data protection. Policy. Policy is actually very, very important to give some assurance. At least, you know, a reputable organisation that's prepared to go public and say, this is what we do with your information, this is what we won't do. Okay, you can only trust it as far as you're prepared to trust the organisation not to lie, but it damages its reputation if it does. So you get some assurance out of policies. Use of encryption. Well, look, encryption doesn't buy you everything. It doesn't do everything. But when you go and lose your disk full of stuff, or memory stick full of private information from the Inland Revenue, and it then turns out that you haven't bothered to encrypt it, you're sort of asking for trouble. So, you know, it does have a role. And decent authentication mechanisms. One of the big problems with your credit card information is that it's not secret, so don't blame the fact that somebody has been able to find it out as a problem. The actual problem is that the banks will allow transactions using that information to take place as if it were secret, as if by itself that number provided authentication. They don't seek a lot of authentication beyond that, particularly for online transactions. And where they do, that is, well, offline, a 4-digit PIN. Not a big deal. And as I say, the machine's not always, you have no guarantee that you can really trust those machines. a signature. Well, you're used to a signature. That's always been considered reasonable authentication. But online, can't get a signature, and they don't ask you for that PIN. They ask you for a 3-digit number that's written on the back of the card. Oh, I can remember a 3-digit number, it's all right. Not really very secure. Forget about people who are going to do complicated technical interceptions over the internet. That's not the way to get that sort of information. Look when they hand it you in a restaurant. Minimal authentication is available, but is vital to get that. That's why I was always in favour of identity cards. We need better authentication. Maybe the solution was wrong, and certainly the way it was being done was pretty cack-handed. But actually, to get public trust, better authentication is, I think, essential. Then you've got tick box permissions. That's pretty minimal, isn't it? But it's, in some sense, all you've got. Tick or untick the box that says you can flog this information for commercial purposes. Tick or untick the box that says I'm going to inundate you with junk mail, or I'm going to let all my friends and neighbours inundate you with junk mail. They may work. Telephone preference service may work some of the time. I've yet to see it. But those are what we've got for data protection. And really that's the, I think it's important, because it is such a good exemplar of where trust is needed, why we need to care about it, and why we need to think more about what makes trust and and how you manage that. I haven't actually told you. My title was Managing Trust. I haven't really done that because it's all an open question still. Shouldn't be, perhaps, but it is. So, if I come to a conclusion, I think, first of all, that I hope my somewhat discursive talk has shown you that it is central to the achievement of business benefits. When trust breaks down, it's not just that you get hurt, but you have higher risk of getting hurt. It means that you don't do things. I don't do internet banking. You probably all do, or many of you do. It's not because I know it's bad, but I'm not entirely convinced that that what I perceive as risks are worth me doing that, given that I can still do other things. It would change if I couldn't do it any other way. I'd have to do it. You build trust from getting various forms of assurance measures, getting a third party to hold, your stake. Right? Here you are. We both trust this guy. He's a lawyer, and he's going to be in trouble if he can't be trusted. So I give him this huge sum of money that he will pass on to you when I've got the keys to the house that you're selling me. Right? It's actually really rather important that I have some help, because the risk of giving you the huge sum of money and you running off with it and me not getting the house is just too awful to contemplate. If it's a question of I'll buy you a beer and you can buy me one next week, yeah, I'll take that risk. And I'll probably be okay. All we've got to start on is what we do between human beings that we see face to face, that we can observe, that we can learn about, that we can gain reputation from our friends, neighbours, that we can, in more important circumstances, maybe get a CRB check or whatever. But we've got then to adapt that to the impersonal. Adapt those concepts to see what does that mean when it's not a human being but a machine. What does it mean when it's not a human being but an organisation that contains human beings but act differently? It's more complex. For machines, It's not only complex, it's technically challenging. And so basically it's got to be, we have got to manage it. I think this is the thing, is that we've learnt to manage security. Not necessarily well, but we know that you've got to do it by management. We don't really yet, as far as I've not yet come across organisations that actually manage trust in quite the same way. It's all sort of rolled in with security, and that's when you end up then getting problems with, for example, when something does go wrong, you've got loss of confidence, you find things aren't working that are needed. And I think you need to manage that separately. It is, of course, an essential ingredient for information security. Data protection, I still think, is the major exemplar for the need for trust. It's the one that I think people think of first. And it's where a lot of the issues can be addressed in a sort of concrete way, and they're maybe easier to look at the generality. And then I've talked a little bit about privacy and confidentiality. And that, I think, really brings what I've got to say to a conclusion. Thank you all very much for your attention. If you have any questions, I can have a go, but I've no idea what the time is.